You've been putting off this conversation for months. Maybe you took on more responsibility at work. Maybe you're doing the job of someone who left and never got replaced. Maybe you just know, deep down, that you're underpaid for what you actually do. And every time you think about bringing it up, one of two scripts runs in your head. Script 1. I'm so sorry to bring this up. I know things are busy, but I was just wondering if it's not too much trouble, maybe we could talk about a raise at some point. Script 2. I deserve more money. I've earned this. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. Both of these are going to fail. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why and what to say instead. Let's break down why each of these doesn't work. The apologetic ask fails because of something called framing. When you frame a raise as a favor, would you mind if it's not too much trouble, you've handed the other person full control over the outcome. You've made it easy to say, let me think about it, which in most workplaces is a soft no that never gets revisited. You've also signaled without meaning to that you don't fully believe you deserve this. And people tend to take their cue for how to treat a request from how it's presented to them. The entitled ask fails for a different reason. When you walk in and say, I deserve this, you're not making a business case, you're making a personal claim. And personal claims invite personal judgment. The moment a manager feels judged or cornered, they get defensive. And defensive people don't negotiate well. They dig in. You've turned a conversation into a confrontation, and confrontations rarely end in yes. Here's the pattern underneath both of these. They're both about you. One is about your worth being small enough to apologize for. The other is about your worth being big enough to demand recognition for. Neither one is actually about the business case for paying you more. And that's the real problem. Most people walk into this conversation trying to get their worth validated, but a raise isn't a referendum on your worth as a person, it's a business decision. And once you separate those two things, the whole conversation gets easier. Before the technique, it's worth understanding why this specific ask feels so much harder than it should. Money conversations get tangled up with identity. Asking for more money can feel like asking, am I worth more? And if the answer is no, or even just not right now, it can feel like a verdict on you as a person, not just a line item in a budget. That's why people either shrink, the apologetic version, or puff up, the entitled version. Both are armor against the same fear. The fix isn't to feel more confident before you walk in. It's to change what the conversation is actually about. If you can walk in treating this as a business case, here's what I've contributed, here's the market rate, here's what I'm asking for, you take the emotional temperature down for both sides. Your manager isn't being asked to judge your worth as a human. They're being asked to evaluate a proposal. That's a much easier yes. Here's a concept from negotiation research called anchoring. In any negotiation, whoever states a concrete number first tends to shape the entire rest of the conversation, even when the other party knows that's happening. Most people walk into a raise conversation with no number at all. They say something like, I was hoping we could talk about compensation, and then let the manager set the frame, which usually starts with something like, budgets are tight this year, before you've said a word. Once that frame is set, you're negotiating against a story you didn't get to write. The fix, you set the anchor. Before the meeting, look up market rate for your role. Sites like Glassdoor or Levels.fy or industry-specific salary surveys give you a real range. Pick a number toward the higher end of what's reasonable, not because you're trying to overreach, but because anchors that are too modest just get discounted further. You want to state a specific figure, not a vague gesture at a bit more. A manager can't advocate for you upward based on effort. I worked really hard this year doesn't translate into a budget line. What does translate is impact. Before the conversation, write down 3 concrete things. One, a project or responsibility you took on that wasn't originally yours. Two, a measurable outcome you can point to. Saved time, saved money, grew a number, fixed a problem that was costing the company something. Three, how your role today is different from your role when your current salary was set. You're not building a case for why you're a good person. You're building a paper trail your manager can literally forward to their boss. Two more pieces that matter as much as the words themselves. Timing. Ask right after a clear win, not right after a mistake. And be aware of the budget cycle at your company if you can find out when it is. Asking during a hiring freeze or immediately after a bad quarter is fighting an uphill battle no script can fully fix. Language. Use collaborative framing, not apologetic or adversarial framing. Something like, based on these three things I documented, I think a raise to your number reflects where I'm contributing right now. Can we talk about what that could look like? Notice what that sentence does. It's not a favor request, it's not a demand, it's a proposal, backed by evidence with an invitation to discuss. That's the tone that gets taken seriously. And prepare for something other than an immediate yes. If the answer is not right now, the single best follow-up question is, what would need to be true for this to happen in the next 6 months? That question turns a no into a roadmap, and it also tells you a lot about whether this is a company worth waiting on. Impact, not effort. Document outcomes, not hours. An anchor, not a vague ask. Walk in with a specific number. A business case, not a personal referendum. This is a proposal, not a verdict on your worth. You don't need to be asking for a raise this week for this to be useful. This week, just write down 3 concrete wins from the last 6 months, even if you're not bringing them to anyone yet. Having them written down changes how you see your own year, whether or not you use them in a meeting. If you want more of these practical, research-backed ways to handle the stuff nobody teaches you, subscribe. See you in the next one.